I'm always joking with my students and other painters about tape. When you're a painter, you learn a lot about tertiary products like tape, and I think one of the reasons why painters have a reputation for being boring is, if I were at a party with some other painters, I could probably talk about tape for about 3 or 4 hours. Just tape,
That's the way we are. Talk about materials.
Yeah. And also, the materials are always changing. Now 3M and Frog Tape have a leak-proof tape, so that eliminates this step of top sealing the tape. But I don't think it's any different from, somebody, people talking about golf, variations in golf clubs or something like that. It's just shop talk, I guess. That's all it is. But you do learn, over the course of painting for years, you learn a lot of different things you probably wouldn't expect to.
Now, how long have you been painting for?
About 25 years. I grew up in Florida, and I was, an artsy kid. I had asthma, so I was inside a lot, and I took art lessons. But I didn't really know much about it, or, I was kind of isolated in terms of the context of art. We had museums where I grew up in Winter Park, which is near Orlando, but they would show things like Tiffany lamps and that kind of thing. But when I went to the University of Florida when I was about 19 or 20, I was taking art history as an elective. And the lady who taught it had been a painter in New York. Mm-hmm. And this show came to the University Gallery called Post-War Painting from Brandeis University. I saw the catalog. I could show it to you later. And I had to go see it and write a paper about it for my art history class. And they had a bunch of New York painting I'd never seen before. They had Mangolds, de Koonings, Warhols, Rosenquist, just the whole gamut. And Franz Klein, Kenneth Noland. But the thing that was really interesting for me, well, the first time I went, I had kind of a bit of a hostile reaction, which I think is kind of normal. But then it got under my skin, and I kept going back. And there was this painting there by James Brooks. Who's kind of a lesser-known abstract expressionist. He had been a roommate of Pollock's when they lived on St. Mark's Place, and had moved out to the Hamptons, and he's a very good painter. Ironically, he also taught at Pratt for some time too. He had this painting Rodado, and the third or fourth time I saw it, it just really got under my skin, and that's when I decided not only did I want to be a painter, but that I wanted to be an abstract painter, and kind of changed the course of my life. And ironically, at this point in time, it's that same collection at Brandeis that they've been talking about selling off to recover the funds from the Madoff scandal. And it's kind of upsetting to me in some ways, because in my case it definitely fulfilled its educational role, and it, I don't think I would have been a painter if I hadn't seen that show. So, but they had great stuff, and so I talked to the painters there, and I took classes and all that, and everybody said, "Oh, you got to go to New York. You got to go to New York. You can't even be in Brooklyn, but you got to go to New York." And I remember being at the University of Florida, and they had this book that had the names of artists and where they lived inside. It had like their mailing address. And, all these people, like, it was an older book, but like David Diao, Harvey Quaitman, Bryce Martin, all these kind of abstract painters whose work I liked and only knew from magazines. They all lived on the Bowery. And I remember being like, I guess I was 20. I remember thinking, I really want to go to New York and be an abstract painter and live on the Bowery. And then that happened. I ended up living on the Bowery for about 8 years. And I remember this enormous sense of satisfaction, coming from Florida and being able to make that happen. And I love being on the Bowery, but of course that's changed a lot. And now I'm out here in Brooklyn in, a better situation for me. I don't have to worry about getting thrown out here. But, when I came to New York, I met Bryce Martin, I met a lot of those people. I met Harvey Quaitman, very nice man. And it was wonderful to be able to kind of, through your own earnestness, I guess, to be able to come to a city like this and to drop into a scene and meet the people that were at the very top. Like, a lot of people are into computers, but I don't necessarily think you could just, move to Redmond and meet Bill Gates. But, when I came to the city in 1988, if you wanted to meet somebody like Ron Gorchov or Bryce Martin, it wasn't that hard, And they were all very magnanimous. They could afford to be, I guess. So that's how I got into it. And then I was in New York for a few years. And I never thought it never occurred to me that I might end up staying here for the rest of my life, even though I was really kind of a monomaniac about painting, about abstract painting. And I decided maybe I should get an MFA. So I went to Pratt, and I really liked that a lot. And then I graduated from there in 92. And I had a bunch of different kinds of jobs for many years. And then around 99, I started teaching there in Hunter College, a little bit at Cooper Union. And, painting all the time. And learning, and meeting different kinds of painters, getting different kinds of point of view. But, like I said, for me it was mostly about abstract painting. I think New York is just a great place to be a young artist. For many years I worked at a bookstore that sold out-of-print art books. Uptown, on the Upper East Side. And that was great too, because a lot of other artists work there. And just being in that kind of environment, I met a lot of dealers and collectors. I met some of the first people that I showed with there. But more importantly, being around books on every subject of art, it exposed me to a lot of things like Asian art, architecture, other things that I might not necessarily have drifted to, just sort of was exposed to because I was handling these books and seeing all different things. And then also too, this is before the internet. I could see a lot of catalogs of abstract painters from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, that had shown, before I got to New York. So in another way, it was a way to kind of complete my education and fill in the gaps, get a feeling for the context of the fabric of the art world and how it changes. One of the catalogs I came across was the very first Barnett Newman catalog when he showed at French and Company, which I think is what became the Gagosian space on the Upper East Side. And I got to, through that job I met his widow, Annalee Newman, and got to see their collection. And It was interesting. The Upper East Side wasn't so interesting. One thing I noticed, every time I would go to somebody's apartment on the Upper East Side, it always seemed like they would have an Ellsworth Kelly plant drawing. I mean, those are lovely. He's a master of the contour drawing, second only to Matisse. But it was almost like the taste was so uniform, so uniformly defined that you had to have one of those, or your Park Avenue sitting room wasn't complete. I feel like a barber. I feel like a barber right now. I mean, I like this part of it. I feel like it keeps my hand in it, and I like doing it my own way. I like customizing it. You know, I prefer this to like buying off the shelf. But also, I mean, you know, I don't think I would ever want to have an assistant. I mean, that's part of the rationale for working small. For me, it's sustainable. It's, you know, something I can do on my own. But I'm superstitious in that I feel like this is much a part of the painting is, you know, even though it's really just the premise, the setup. But you know, for me, it's important that my hand is in this as well. Not just the top coat, but the bottom coats as well. Also, I mean, like a lot of painters, I have, you know, ideas about how things should be done, and you know, I like it done my way. So I suppose you could train somebody to do it like that, but I just feel like it's easier for me just to do it myself. And I've changed a lot of aspects of my technique, well, everything, you know, over the years. And part of it, you know, comes from my experience doing this mundane stuff that goes, you know, part of painting. I mean, Cindy Sherman once famously said that painting was a dull, nugatory activity, and I can understand why an artist would feel that way, because a lot of it is this kind of thing, you know, like in that Talking Head song, you know, cleaning, whatnot. But I mean, I guess I enjoy it the same way a gardener just likes working in the dirt or something, you know. I like the feel of the materials. I like the stretch canvas, you know. I like all this stuff. It's not boring to me. So that's my first coat. I only do two. I'm so that it's uniformly white. I'm not one of these people who does like 50 coats and sands endlessly. I use Army Duck, so that's really fine. So you know, you can get it almost like paper pretty quickly. You don't have to do all that kind of sanding. So, and then, because I'm impatient, I have a hard time waiting the 2 hours for it to dry. I use this guy.